Hello. So welcome to sommer.naturales. This is my first Instagram live. Nobody's here yet, but I'm just introducing myself. For when I say this, you'll know what's going on. So today I am talking about improving your relationship with food. Just waiting for a few people to enter and we can start our discussion. Alright, so I'm just going to do a little bit of an intro. So I'm Dr. Kimberley Sommerville. I am a general practitioner. I'm a clinical nutritionist. I've been working in medicine for about, call it 10 years now. And I've been doing nutrition for about 2 years actually. I started medicine because I really was interested in nutrition and then realized that this medicine thing doesn't have a lot to do with it. So I did my master's in nutrition and now I am working with women to help them with their weights and their blood sugar control as well. I wanted to start this as my first live because I found that a lot of clients tend to have problems with just how they relate to food. You know, they may not know what to eat, but knowing what to eat is just one step, but actually putting in, the different consistent work to eat on time, to feel okay with what you're eating, I think that is something that we should really discuss. And a lot of the times we don't realize it, but that's kind of why I wanted to put it on the forefront. All right, so even though there's just one person, I'm going to start and just talk and see if anybody else enters. All right then. So just as a disclaimer, if anybody thinks that they have an eating disorder of any kind, I don't want this live to be thought of anything that can diagnose you or anything that can treat or manage what you're going through. I would love if you could just speak to a therapist or a psychologist that's available to you so you can get individualized care. And the second disclaimer is that having a poor or good relationship with food doesn't look the same on everybody. So you can't look at one person or the other and think, oh, they don't have a good relationship. Whether they are normal body weight, they're slim or overweight, then you can't really tell because it's individual and it's not something you can see on the person. But let's first talk about where your relationship with food comes from. So your relationship with food surprisingly comes from as way back as your childhood. So remember that when we're born with knowing when to eat. Babies know exactly when they're hungry and they know exactly when they're full. Usually they wake up every 2 to 3 hours because they want food, right? But as we start solid foods, parents or caregivers have that authority to say, I want to eat. I want you to eat now. And of course, in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, we know that, everybody wants you to eat because you want to grow big and strong. But there is a way that parents say, hey, I need you to eat some more for mommy. You can't get up from the table unless you finish all of your food, or you can't waste any food in my house, that type of thing. So if you have gone through that, then possibly that may have, steered a relationship with food in one way or the other. And as you get older into adolescence, it's not just about your caregivers anymore, it's about your friends, your family, your colleagues. You're eating something and you're probably a little bit slim and they're like, you're going to eat all of that food? Where are you going to put it? If you're a little bit overweight, they're going to say, you sure you want to eat off all of that? You sure you must eat that fast food? And you get these looks from persons when you're, eating a regular meal. And these things become ingrained in your psyche to think about, okay, probably I shouldn't eat so much, or probably I can't eat this, I can't eat that. And we then have this relationship where we don't really know what to do because we're not listening to our own intuition anymore. So those are some of the factors that lead you to a particular relationship with food when you have just started, right? Have just started in childhood, going on to teenage years. And when you go on to your 20s, after hearing all of these things everywhere, you decide, maybe I need to cut out this food. Maybe I need to go on this diet or eat more of this. Even if it is that you don't want to, you think that you need to. And going on diets back and forth can also find a way to get into our mind and think that even when we're not on the diet, we still need to be restricting or adding a lot even when we don't want to. So those are where, you know, your relationship can come from. Talking about that, we then can give examples of what a poor relationship with food is. Does anybody have any idea of what it may look like if you have a poor relationship with food? I'm gonna give you a few minutes. I also realized, just as a side note, I realized that, you know, the finals for the 200 meters are in about half an hour. So we're gonna keep this to about a half an hour so that we can all enjoy the races at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments. I am definitely going to answer. All right. Okay. So if there isn't any comments, I'm just going to go on into what a poor relationship with food may look like. All right. So as I had alluded to before, it looks like following diets, stopping diets, and then starting again. So if you follow a diet, usually you have to restrict. Essentially what I was just speaking about. You have to stop eating certain things. And even if you're still hungry, your diet said, don't eat that. So you have to put it down, right? But if you are full, you say, all right, I think I'm just going to continue eating what I need to do. But once you have a diet, stop, go back on a diet, you are actually reducing your body's natural hunger and fullness cues. And what I mean by that, when you're hungry, your body tells you, right? Your belly starts to growl, your belly starts to rumble a little bit, and you feel like you need food. It's not any specific food, but you just need to eat right now. And this usually starts at about 3 to 5 hours after you've eaten your last meal, because that's when your stomach, you know, empties or digests your food, right? And when you're full, you should feel like your belly is a little bit stretched. Not too stretched to the point of bloating, but just stretched enough for you to feel satisfied and you can go about your day. But when you go back and forth with dieting, your body kind of turns that off because your mind is now controlling what your stomach should be feeling. So you continue with that, and then that leads you, even when you're not dieting, to be thinking about what you need to restrict. So that's one thing that you may notice when you have a poor relationship with food. I'm going to be looking to the right sometimes because I'm looking at my notes. So the next thing is that you feel guilty or you feel shameful when you eat something. So a lot of the times, if your hunger and fullness cues are turned off, you notice that, boy, you eat ice cream or you eat cake, boy, I shouldn't have eat that, you know, even though you don't have really a good reason as to why you shouldn't. Society just says that you shouldn't eat it. So you feel bad. You eat off a carton of ice cream, or you eat more slices of bread than you should have, and you feel guilty. Really, feeling guilt or shame or good and bad shouldn't be related to food at all, you know. But that's what we are told. We're told that we can't eat certain things or we need to eat certain things. So when you don't want to do one or both of these, you feel bad. And that's one of the situations that we try to improve and we try to go away from when we're working on your relationship with food. So hopefully nobody has this issue, but if you do, you can let us know and we can discuss it in the comments or in the DMs if you want to. The third thing is that you feel stressed when you're going into social situations. So let's say that you're going to a party or get together, somebody's birthday, and you know that food is going to be there, but you also know that persons love to have something to say about food. No matter what it is, if your plate full, if your plate half, if you're just eating a little bit of things, then have something to say, because people always have something to say about your food. And you get nervous, you get stressed out. Sometimes you don't even want to go to the event because you think about all the things that are going to be said. This may be one of those things that say, hey, there is a relationship problem with food and you may want to get that I shouldn't say checked out, but you may want to talk to somebody about it, because you shouldn't feel stressed when you're going to eat. Shouldn't really happen that way, right? When now you have been dieting, and with certain diets you have to count your calories, or you have to weigh your food, things like that, you tend to now rely on calorie counting, right? You always say, boy, I can't eat that second slice of bread because that's 120 calories. I can't have that soda because that is 500 calories and my calories gone up for the day, all of that type of thing. Not the best. Of course, I'm not going to knock calorie counting. Some people can do that and they have really sustained that type of diet throughout their life, and they feel healthy and they feel good. But if you have to count calories and you feel stressed, your heart start to race, you start to sweat because you say, boy, I can't eat more than this certain amount of calories, or I'm going to be a bad person, or I'm going to fail my trainer or fail my nutritionist, then that is something definitely that you want to put to the side, because that stress is just going to carry along with you throughout years, months, throughout your lifetime, even though it's going to be for a short period of time. So those are some of the things that will connotate as a poor relationship with food. For the persons who just came, I see Marsha, I see Kadeen, hi guys. For the person who just came, I'm just going to go over what a poor relationship with food kind of looks like if you didn't catch much of it. The first thing is that you're kind of yo-yo dieting, go from a diet to normal eating and back on a diet, back and forth. You're not feeling hunger or fullness as usual. You're feeling guilt or shame when you're eating. You're stressed out because you can't go to social situations without thinking about food, and you're relying on calories, counting calories to tell you whether or not you can really eat these things. So that's just some of the reasons that you may need to improve your relationship with food if you find that any of these are happening to you. And it's not to shame anyone, because as I was saying earlier in the live, our relationship with food comes as far back as childhood, based on how we were taught to eat. If we were taught not to eat certain things, or to finish our plates, or to not waste food in the house, that type of thing. Those things from as far back as that can impact you. So it's just to be aware of what's going on with you, give yourself a little grace, and then find out how you can improve upon them. So I'm just going to continue. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is what a good relationship with food looks like. It's kind of just the inverse of a poor relationship, but it's good to know the positive side of it rather than just always talking about the negative, right? So I was discussing first, okay, thanks Katie. So I was discussing first about hunger and fullness cues. So I wanted to speak on that a little bit more, because that's what we should really think about first off, right? So when you're hungry, you have certain bodily happenings or bodily things that happen when you're hungry. So your belly starts to grow, it starts to rumble. If you are hungry for more than about 5 hours, you start to have a headache, you get irritable, you get hungry, you're snapping at your boss, you're snapping at your partner, you feel a little bit tired, you feel weak, your hands might tremble, you might be dizzy. All of these things may occur when you get hungry, right? And after that, if you are full, your stomach should stretch just a little bit. It shouldn't be bloated, it shouldn't have a huge heavy feeling, but it should stretch a bit, and that specific stretching should actually signal to your brain that, hey, I'm full, I don't need anything more. And the thing about being satisfied is that it takes about 20 minutes after you start eating to when you finish eating, or even after you finish eating, to notice that fullness. So a lot of the times we eat and then we finish the plate, especially like at Christmas dinner. We finish the plate, and as soon as we finish the plate, we go back for seconds. So by the time we finish the seconds, we realize we're stuffed, right? And that happens because usually we should give ourselves a little bit like 20 minutes after the first plate, see how you feel, and you might actually realize that you're already full, but then you can take a smaller amount of seconds if you like, so you don't feel stuffed. So that's the difference between hunger and fullness cues. But when people diet a lot, it tends to happen where those things are turned off and you really can't follow your body anymore. You just have to eat when you can. And that may not be for like a few hours at a time. Some people eat once a day. Some people eat not at all, and they say that they forget to eat. So that's one of those things that I hear a lot. I just forgot to eat, and I'm now in the night and I feel weak. Or you eat off everything in the fridge because you are so starved after not eating for such a long period of time, right? But for those who can have the hunger and fullness cues, that's what you want to look for to say, hey, I'm probably having a healthy relationship with food. Next thing is that no food is off limits. A lot of the time we want to say, can't eat that, can't eat this. And if it's not due to a particular illness, then really you shouldn't say that foods are off limits. All foods can be had, but in moderation, right? Always in moderation. It doesn't have to be that you have to eat the whole cake or the whole ice cream. And if you do, hey, just understand that that happened and kind of look into yourself and say, hey, probably wonder why that happened today. Maybe I have been emotional. Maybe I'm on my menstrual cycle, because that's pretty normal as well. When our hormones are changing, we want certain sweet and salty things because that's just what happens. So it's not to put yourself down, but it happens sometimes. So don't put any food off limits, because research has shown that when you restrict foods, your mind just wants it more. So you say that you can't have the cake. When you have the cake, you're going to eat more than you really wanted to. And then you don't realize that you can just relax and eat some, and then probably the next 2 weeks you have some again. That's perfectly okay. Next thing is that you don't feel like you have to justify your food, right? You don't feel like when you have eaten, you're just going to say, all right, I can have this because it's not that many calories. I can have that because I haven't had it for a long period of time. You don't feel like you have to justify your food when you feel comfortable eating, because you know that you have control over it. You have the control to eat any delicious food that you want because you have that control, and you can go another time and eat something else without feeling bad. So that's one thing as well. Also, you don't think that eating any type of food makes you a good or bad person. I hear from clients a lot that, boy, I ate a salad today, I feel good, I feel like a good person. Or I had a chocolate bar, I ate off the whole chocolate bar, I feel so bad, I just don't know what to do. It's okay. Give yourself grace. As I said on the previous part of the live, food is not just about nourishment. It's not just about protein, carbs. What's the other one? My mind is drawing a blank. Protein, carbs, and fats. It's not just about that. It's about tradition. It's about celebrating. It is about, culture, right? So we have bun and cheese in Easter, Christmas cake, KFC after, we finish school. It's always about so much more than just nourishment. So you have to take off the good and bad connotation to feel okay with food over time. I talked about, enjoying foods in moderation, but the last part to say that when you have a good relationship with food is you stop eating the foods that you hate. It sounds easy, but a lot of the times when you're trying to eat well, like these fitness people, you want to eat, the green smoothie with the kale, or, have the oats, even though you don't like the oats, that type of thing. You don't have to. You don't have to. It's hard because our food in terms of our culture is seen as unhealthy, but a lot of our food, especially in Jamaica, is quite healthy, but it's not marketed that way. So if we were to know that, hey, we can have our stewed chicken and rice and just have some more vegetables, it would be a little bit easier for persons to think that they can eat healthy without thinking that they have to go to quinoa or kale or something of that nature, because it's not necessary, right? So if anybody has any questions, hi everyone who's just joined, you can let me know. I'm just going to give you a few minutes, and if not, then I'll just continue. So we're going to get to how we can actually improve our relationship with food after we went through what's good, what's bad, what's, the best way to go about this, right? So the first thing that you want to do with improving your relationship with food is allowing yourself to eat. It sounds pretty simple, but it may not be. So allowing yourself to eat is that you take off all the rules that you've had about food and you just eat when you're hungry. So as I was talking about the hunger and stuff, a lot of persons don't feel hungry anymore just based on, how their history was previously, right? So what you can do for those who don't really feel hungry is during the hours that you're awake, allow yourself to eat every 3 to 5 hours. And I say every 3 to 5 hours because that's the time that your stomach usually digests whatever food you've eaten before. So let us say you've had breakfast at say 8 o'clock. At around say 11 to 12, you want to eat something. It doesn't have to be anything large. It can be a little snack, some peanuts, a sandwich, some yogurt, whatever the case may be, just so that it can put something in your stomach. What that does is after you've done this for like say 2 to 3 weeks, your body starts realizing that, hey, I'm actually getting food. Probably, I can actually start to connect with the brain a little bit more and tell them when I'm hungry, because at least now I know that food is going to come into the stomach, because your body works the way you treat it, right? So after you've given yourself food every 3 to 5 hours, your hunger cues will start to kick in, and now you can start the second thing, which is eating when you're hungry. Again, sounds simple, but even for persons who work in certain places where you're busy all the time, sometimes you don't get a break. Sometimes when you get a break, it's just half an hour, and to actually go get the lunch and come back, the lunchtime finish, all of that jazz, it's hard. But if you're able to eat when you're hungry, for example, for me, if I'm going out on a Saturday and I have a lot of errands to do, I try to bring a snack with me, because I know that if I'm out for at least 5 hours and I don't eat, I'm gonna get irritable, I'm gonna get annoyed, I'm gonna get tired. So it's really good for just persons in general, even if you're not like me and getting irritable, you want to have something to eat when you're hungry, so all of these emotions don't have to come into play, and you sustain yourself, and then again, you can probably eat a larger meal when the time allows for that. So those are the two things. Allow yourself to eat at least every 3 to 5 hours if you don't really have much hunger or fullness. And then when it's actually tapped in now that you have increased your hunger and fullness, you then eat when you're hungry. The third thing is eating mindfully. And I want a show of hands for persons who, if you're going to eat, especially when you're at home, you have to make sure that either you Netflix find a show or YouTube find a show or something before you sit down to eat. You can't just eat so and nothing is playing in the background. Anybody? Is it just me? Alright, it probably just me. But eating, okay, Miss Rudy says, Amoria says, hey, she has to find something to watch before she actually eats. Okay, and Katie says that as well. So yeah, so a lot of the times when we're going to eat, we have something playing, right? And this actually distracts us from the food itself. Sometimes we find that we just had a whole plate of food, but when we finish after watching TV, we're still kind of hungry or we're not satisfied. And that really happens because our mind was distracted. Our mind didn't really get the opportunity to connect with our stomach to know, hey, this food tastes good, or this food never tastes good today, it never cooked good, or I'm actually full, but I didn't feel that fullness because my mind was concentrating on something else. So that's a good way. If you decide that you had a poor, okay, Anna says that she does that as well. It's a good way to decide that you want to improve your relationship with food is kind of just, if it's not all the time, but just say 2 to 3 times out of the week, you eat, not necessarily in silence, probably you can listen to some music, or if you have anybody else there, you can, talk to them while eating. Okay, so I have a question here, and it says, would eating this way facilitate weight loss, or it's just to build a better? Okay, that's a great question. So the question is, does this help weight loss, or it's just to build a better relationship with food? It's actually to build a better relationship with food, because as I said at the first part, you're going to eat every 3 to 5 hours, right? And that's usually more than most people eat. So more than likely, you're not necessarily going to notice weight loss unless you're doing a lot of activity. So usually weight loss occurs if you are balancing your hormones and if you are burning more calories than you're eating. So if you're pretty active during this time, then you might notice weight loss. But if you're not active and you're just, doing your regular thing, you won't notice weight loss here. You will just improve your relationship with food. But I start with this because a lot of the times, you see, when we're trying to lose weight, our poor relationship with food stops us. So even if you lose weight, you may actually revert to what you previously were doing, and you find that you're going back and forth trying to lose weight. So this whole thing is not necessarily quick in terms of losing weight, but it will be sustainable in terms of permanently losing weight when we get there. So I hope that answers your question, Marshall. Yes, so I was talking about eating mindfully and kind of holding off what you're watching at the time, but you can speak with your partner, speak with your friend, whoever is there with you, or just, actually get into the food itself. So how does it taste today? Does it need anything? How do I feel about eating? Does this actually help in terms of making me feel full, making me feel satisfied? Was I really physically hungry, or was I just eating because of emotions? A lot of the time we might be bored, we might feel lonely, we might feel upset from work the day before, and we just decide that we're going to eat. So it's not really anything that's going to satisfy us, but it is to try to satisfy an emotional need that may need to be helped or be assisted by something else that you can do for yourself. So there's that. And another thing that I use with my clients is using a food diary. It sounds very monotonous and not very fun, but it's really necessary for one of those things that I just spoke about, where sometimes we eat emotionally. If you ever realize that, you're just craving a specific food, like you just say, so I could have eat some chips and some soda right now, or some ice cream with some chocolate syrup and all of these things. If your craving is very, very specific, most of the time it is because of some emotion. And if you actually use a food diary, you will start to notice a pattern with how you eat. And when you notice that pattern, it can help you to go a little bit deeper, because if you eat, say, cake, and when you realize your food diary, you realize, say, you're eating cake only after a very stressful day at work. This will then help you to say, all right, I'm always stressed, and when I'm stressed, I reach for the chocolate cake. What you can do is find some ways that bring you joy. Find something that brings you joy. If it is to call your friend, if it's to go to the movies, if it's to draw, to color, to journal, anything that you prefer, try going for that rather than necessarily going for the food, especially when it's not something that is trying to cure a physical hunger, but more emotional. That essentially means that you want to, care for yourself a little bit more. A lot of the times we talk about self-care, doing your nails, taking care of your hair, all of that, but it's also about, lifting ourselves up emotionally And that can also be something that helps you with how you relate to food. And the last thing that I'd want to say, if all of this seems very overwhelming, you think that this is not possible for you to do, it is possible. Maybe it's something that you would need to talk to a professional about, which the last point is seek out professional help. Because it's possible to do it, but if it seems like, hey, you can't go this alone, you can probably talk to somebody who has done this before, or seek out a therapist. The reason why I say a therapist, first and foremost, a lot of the times when I talk to clients, their food or their issues with food most of the time don't have to do with the food itself, but it's the emotions behind it. So when you actually go to the root of the problem, whether that be anxiety, whether you may have a little depression, or you just need some coping skills outside of food, that may make all the difference. And if that is not the case, you can also talk to a nutritionist who would help you to go through these little habits that you need in order to get a positive relationship with food over time. And I said over time because all of this cannot be done in a few days. I think I saw the first thing that I said was to allow yourself to eat, and you wanted to kind of do this for about 2 to 3 weeks. Then you're going to eat when you're hungry, and that's another 2 to 3 weeks. So it really takes some time. And I know in our culture we kind of want things fast. We don't really want to wait. But if you want permanent results as opposed to quick results, then this is something that you'd want to consider, if it is that you may think that you have a poor relationship with food. And if not, of course, you can do different diet plans if you like. But my approach really is usually something sustainable in terms of small habits, in terms of how you're eating, so that you can make those habits into a larger change and a larger lifestyle change that you can take with you throughout. All right. So that's about it. It is 8:33. Does anybody have any questions? Was anything not clear for you? Please let me know. I wanted to keep it short and sweet and to the point. I hope that it helped. You guys said it was clear, so I'm very happy about that. And yeah, so thank you for coming. Thank you, Arnella, for coming as well, even though you came at the last part. And yes, I'm going to be posting it just now, so you're supposed to see it. All right, so have a good night. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.